Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Getting Personal with Compt. I'm Lauren Schneider, the head of communications at Compt. This show is all about chatting with workplace experts who are committed to building a better human experience at work, not just a better employee experience. That is something that I think is very top of mind right now. I'm coming down from the high of a week at Transform, and it was a lot of conversations around how can we build a more inclusive workplace? How can we better support employee mental health? How can we go beyond the table stakes that we're offering? And I'm so excited today to introduce to you my guest, Sabrina Greenwood. Sabrina, you're an HR consultant, so you've seen a lot of these conversations happening in real time. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I'm an independent consultant and strategist. I work primarily with smaller businesses, 20 or so employees and fewer, to help them do just what you said, provide more than the basics. I help them really look at what do their people want? What do their people need? Where are they in life? And see how the business can offer to meet them where their needs are without breaking the bank. Especially small businesses don't always have a lot of money to essentially waste on benefits people don't use. So I kind of strategize with them to figure out where to put their money to the best use.
So you and I started speaking in January of this year, which I think was perfect timing because you said that's when people really started focusing on the idea of lifestyle benefits, not just the, health insurance and TO and things that better support work-life balance and especially the life part of the balance. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I was a little surprised because I hadn't even heard really the term lifestyle benefits until late last year. I think it's kind of a new word that's cropping up that people are jumping onto, but several of my clients have come to me to say, how can we broaden what we offer? People have asked for accommodations really for their life, right? Like you're talking about
Mhm.
that work life balance. And I think a lot of companies are starting to realize what they think is important isn't necessarily what is important to people, right? And it's easy to forget. We all think about our own experience as being standard or being typical, or everybody around us is doing the same thing. But the reality is that's not true, especially in today's world where you have companies that have exposure across the country. You know, people in Los Angeles, where I used to live, don't have the same life goals as people here in New Hampshire where I'm living now. It's such a different situation. And age obviously plays a difference. And the newer generations coming in, they want better support out of their managers and they're demanding it. And I think that's driven the conversations and the questions that have come my way where people just want to know, can I get support to pay off my student loans? Can I get support to start a family? Can I get support to buy a house? Like what can you do to help me live a better life? And conversely, when employees don't worry about those things on their own, they spend more time worrying about your business. They spend more time focused on their job and not having to think about calling the bank for their loan update or whatever that comes through. So I think a lot of companies are really interested in it, but also still feeling. I am so sorry. My
Is
cat
that
just
your cat?
that was one of my cats. Yes. So there he is. So
That's
sorry.
the work-life balance working
It is.
remotely.
It is. And he's got brain damage, so he doesn't jump, he falls.
Oh
And
no.
yeah,
Well,
he just fell off his cat tree.
what you were saying before all of that was really resonating with me, especially as a millennial in the workplace. I've
Mhm.
definitely said the words, I didn't realize I could be so productive when
Yeah.
I had true support. I don't have to think about, am I going to be able to pay my mortgage? I don't have to think
Mhm.
about childcare. I don't have to worry about groceries. And my career has shifted so much from working in news where I was making $12 an hour and constantly panicked about all of those things to now having true balance and I have belonging in the workplace. It's the support that has unlocked not just like extreme productivity, but a sense of loyalty to my company and a sense that I can really do anything that I put my mind to now because I'm not inhibited by all of these other workplace things.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's huge.
you were talking a little bit about the flexibility aspect of these lifestyle benefits. So, what does that look like for your clients? Are they looking at something specific over something else like childcare versus mental health support, or is it really just it runs the whole gamut?
So, in terms of my clients, it runs the whole gamut because they're getting questions across the spectrum from their employees, right? There's one person who maybe would like better mental health benefits or have
Mhm.
membership where they could get that support, be treated, or just be heard outside of the workplace by somebody. But there's someone else who really is crippled with student loan debt, right? And again, there's no two experiences that are the same. Even when I was internal at my last company and I had a team of HR people, not one of us was the same age. Not one of us had the same home life, even though a couple of them were mothers. Their children were different ages. One was single, one was married, one had multiple, another one just got engaged. Like, it was such a huge difference, even in our tiny department. We all didn't need the same things out of the company's benefit plan. So I think that's where employers are really starting to hear their people, because one size doesn't fit all. People don't just want medical insurance or dental or vision. They want that full life support. I mean, I'm not a mom, I have cats. Having pet insurance or access to it in a way that could potentially be taken out of my bank, out of my paycheck, so I don't have to remember to pay the bill, or have it be something in a bigger suite that I could choose to purchase through the company, would have been huge for me years ago. So I think there's just a lot of different pieces people are coming to realize make up their entire employee base. Even when you have 10 people, all 10 people have a
Right.
different experience.
So, the thing that comes to mind that's difficult about all of this is you
Mhm.
have to offer extreme personalization and flexibility. And there are so many great tools to choose from. But now we're in a world where we don't have the budget for all of those things. So, how are we able to offer this for Samantha and this for Patty and this for John? And they're all different age groups, they all have different needs. Tool consolidation, that's something we've been talking about a lot, but is that realistic? Is that something that your clients are speaking about as well?
On the whole, yes. To your point, it gets expensive if you're out there signing agreements with a whole bunch of different providers of various benefits. But the time management that comes from it, whether you hire someone like me from outside the company to management, you got to pay for me to do it, or you have to take somebody off of potentially other tasks inside the company if you don't have dedicated HR staff to manage it, to deal with employee issues or complaints. So I think tool consolidation is a huge situation that people are looking into, and integrated, right? If it's a tool that has debt reduction for student loans, does it integrate with their payroll system, right? Can it integrate with, well, and in some cases, there's different tax implications, right? Things can be done
Mhm.
pre-tax, some things can be done post-tax. The federal government and the state governments make up new laws all the time on how things are treated or new programs they're rolling out. And so I think tool consolidation is huge, because then the employee or the HR person doesn't have to be on top of every minute change, because you have a tool that really pulls that all together for you and is your go-to solution for making sure your people get access to all of the pieces that they're looking for.
You raised a really good point about HR professionals and just people ops as a whole having to
Mhm.
be experts in compliance and all of the legalities across state lines. And I had a conversation with someone at Transform last week who was talking about how they have a global workforce. So not only are they dealing with the constant changes happening in California, but they have the craziness in Berlin and nobody's ever on the same page. So it's
Yeah.
not a matter of having an HR professional who's just, turning on the thing, pressing buttons, and then your paycheck's deployed. They have to have a deep understanding of all of these
Mm.
things. And if your tool can alleviate even just a little bit of that, I think you're in the right place.
Agreed, 100%. I stay away from international stuff at this point, but it is complex. And one of my former companies did have a division in the UK. And at the time, I was the only person running HR, and I had to familiarize myself with all of those laws and the differences. And boy, is it different across, international boundaries, but even just state lines. Like you said, California's changing all the time. And being back on the East Coast, I deal with 6 states here. Like, they're so close together. I can 2 hours and I can have gone through 3 or 4 states in New England, and they all have different laws. They all have different, pieces to what they offer or what they recommend. So having a tool that consolidates all of that really is crucial, especially because locally here, people are working across state lines rather frequently, honestly.
I want to ask you also what is top of mind for the rest of the year, because we just entered a new quarter. We really started honing in on the concept of lifestyle benefits and lifestyle
Mhm.
spending accounts at the beginning of this year. We know that there is a continued effort toward not just talent attraction, but retention. Do you think all of these things are going to continue, or will we maybe see a little bit of change as the year goes on?
So I do think things will continue. I know in my conversations, a lot of what's top of mind for people is Secure 2.0, is the student loan reduction stuff that's still in limbo. People are asking a lot of questions about that. They're really looking for how can we help the new employees coming into the workforce, right? You talk about attraction and retention. In order to get kids right out of college, you've got to be willing to work with them and help them have quality of life, right? When I entered the workforce making $10 an hour, there was no one helping you deal with your student loan. There was no one helping you deal with a broken down car on a general basis. And my philosophy behind HR actually was driven by the early career that I have, because the women that I worked for back in those days actually did care and they did help. One of my bosses picked me up every day for a month while my car was being repaired because she drove right by my house. That doesn't happen, right? But it was an early formation of who HR could be that drove my entire career. And it drives all of the advice that I give to my clients. You don't have to go pick up your employees, right? That's going above and beyond. But if you help them, if you listen, if you care, if you support, they're going to stick around. They're going to want to give you their all. Like you mentioned, the loyalty you feel, right? And I do see businesses taking that more and more into account. And some of it's trial by fire. They roll out a program, they see how it goes, it gets great response. Suddenly, they've got friends being recommended to the company for an open position. Hiring takes less time. Those people already know what to expect because their friend, their referrer has worked for the company before. And it becomes a ripple on effect out in your general business community, but inside your company and that growth mode. But also, people stick around, like you said, right? People, when you care about them, when you prove that you care about them, they stick around even through the hard times. And that is something that's really huge.
They don't forget that either based on the story that you just told me. I mean, that's something that is important to me, obviously, as the communications person who's very concerned about brand reputation. But it's the moments, the little moments that matter, and the
Mhm.
continued moments. So you don't have to show up in a massive way for someone,
Mhm.
but if you continuously do that and you keep them top of mind and you show that you're just thinking of their well-being, thinking of their career development, then they'll take that with them wherever they go.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my favorite things to recommend when you have younger people when it comes to meeting somebody where they're at is work out a career development plan with them. You don't necessarily have to pay for the education. You don't necessarily have to pay for the experience, but different company, different boss. I went to him and said, I'll pay to go to the training. I'll pay to go get my own education in this field. Just pay me for the day and don't take it out of my P bucket. Treat it as though I'm working that day for you, because ultimately what I'm going to learn will come back and be applied here, right? And it's going to cost you one day of my time that you'd be paying if I was sitting here anyway. And I'm going to come back with a wealth of knowledge and experience that I can bring to the company and roll it out. And in one particular case, it was a huge situation. I took a class called How to Deal with Difficult People. The very
I need to
next,
take that class.
it was amazing. The very next day, an employee got up in my face about something. They were very emotional. They were feeling very scared and vulnerable, like that they were vulnerable, and got right up in my face. And I turned around and took everything I had learned the day before. I diffused the situation. I didn't engage. I spoke with her. I said, like, I have some thoughts, but I can understand you're not in a place to hear them, right? You're too in the moment. Come on back to me after you've had a chance to take a breath. She came back. She apologized. We came up with a solution. Before that seminar, I'd have probably been up in her face because she got up in my face, right? It was a moment where I was able to even prove to my boss at the time, like, look, I paid for that seminar, you paid for my time, and look at how well that worked out.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I had a better relationship with that coworker moving forward every day from that point on. And actually, I have my two cats today to thank from her. She heard about them somewhere out in the universe in LA and was like, I know that you were looking for more cats. This person has the two you're looking for. And it worked out great. But
That's
before that,
amazing.
I wouldn't have been able to have that calmness. And so it was a huge development thing. And because he saw it in action, he actually deployed it to other people that were interested in getting additional training, that wanted to invest in their own career. And that's huge, right? And that goes back to, like you said, you get that support, you have somebody who's willing to be there for you, and you can have a whole nother level of a career that you didn't think was even possible.
That I always love the stories that you share because they're that I can tell specifically stood out as
Mm,
changing moments in your career that would set you up for where you are now. And I think so many of us experience that and can see something happening in our current workplace that reminds us of where we had once been and where we are now.
yeah, I think so.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. I wanted to, before we end our broadcast, make sure that people know where they can find you, especially because you launched a new website, correct?
I did. It's louisa.com. And I have a whole new website. I have a whole new set of offerings that I'm working with my smaller clients on so that they can turn around and take some of their budget into the lifestyle benefits that their employees want.
So, if someone is maybe looking to bring on an HR consultant like you with specific expertise on board, what kind of company sizes, types are you looking at, or do you normally work with?
Yeah, so I can work with anybody that is just starting out hiring employees, which is actually a little sweet spot that I'm getting into, helping companies that, either have one person or maybe they have a VA and they're looking to actually hire people and really launch their own company. I have a whole package that'll help them with everything they need, including payroll and background checks and all that kind of stuff. But the largest client I have is 52 people. They have an internal HR department, and I oversee that person and help with larger strategy. In that situation, my smaller clients get a lot more hands-on day to day. So really anywhere in that realm. And for the most part, I work with professional services companies.
That makes plenty of sense. Thank you so much thank you so much time. Thank you so much for your time today, Sabrina. We're not morning people. We
No,
know. I'm
no,
not even
we're
through
not.
my first coffee.
Yeah, and I appreciate you having me on. This is great.
Of course, I will see you on the internet and everybody else. I'll catch you next month because we have more wonderful workplace professionals on the way. Thanks so much. Happy Wednesday.
Bye.